Rio is finally adding in new artifact sets after 6 whole months. Oh, and there's a new weapon too. At the current moment, these artifact sets and this weapon do not have a name, but I'm sure they'll come out during the time that I'm making this video, so they will be up on screen. Let's talk about them. Hi, I'm Aaron, back with another one of these types of videos, which I have not done in a long time. But without further delay, let's hop right in, starting with the most interesting addition first. Now, starting off is this new plunge attack artifact set that focuses on making Xiaox cry. This artifact set offers a 25% plunge attack damage bonus in the 2-piece. The 4-piece amplifies this damage bonus on plunging attacks even more, as it grants stacks to the user that each offer 15% plunge attack damage bonus. These stacks can be obtained by hitting an enemy with a plunge attack, a charged attack, or an elemental skill. The plunge attack grants 1 stack, while the charged attack and elemental skill both grant 2 stacks, adding up to a total of 100% plunge attack damage bonus in this entire artifact set. Each stack lasts for only 6 seconds, and these timers are counted independently of one another. When plunge attacks are mentioned, the first character that comes to mind is always our resident Yaksha, Xiao, who has no real issue utilizing this set at first glance. He uses plunge attacks, he uses his skill before his burst, and he can weave in a charge attack here and there for this passive effect. It all looks good, but there is a bit of downtime in this passive with his elemental skill, which has a 10-second cooldown, while the artifact set's buff has a 6-second duration. It might not seem like much, which it really isn't, but it does mean that his elemental skills now need to be spaced out, which can increase his energy requirement, therefore lowering his potential damage output. Thankfully, this does not seem to make much of a difference in his total damage output, and instead pushes us to utilize a slightly different rotation when using him. While this might not have impacted him much, there is one more issue this set has with Xiao that does in fact impact him in a significant manner. Xiao might seem like the perfect user of the set due to the massive damage percent buff it grants plunge attacks, but he has always had the issue that his damage percent stat was way too high. This would normally be a good thing for a main DPS, but his complete reliance on an oversaturated stat has caused him to not age as well as others due to the immense amount of damage percent that has been introduced into the game. It's so much so that when used with this new artifact set in his premium team, Xiao is nearly reaching a 350% damage bonus on his plunge attacks. This ends up impacting him negatively, as his damage can potentially decrease when switching from his old Vermilion Hereafter set to the new plunge attack set due to the loss of attack percent, which is a much more needed stat. However, this can be managed more effectively by swapping his Animo damage bonus goblet for an attack percent one, in which case Xiao's damage would actually increase by a decent 3.5 to 5.5%. But this is all considering the passive effect of this set has 100% uptime, which might not be intuitive to some players. If one of the more important buffs from this set does disappear, or it is never activated, then Xiao can see up to a 6.2% decrease in his overall damage output. So if you do plan to farm for and use this set, it is incredibly important to keep this passive effect capped at all times, else the set will be worse than the ones we currently have in the game. These rules change ever so slightly if you are using a more free-to-play team though, since Bennett would be your primary buffing support instead of Fiorina. In this case, Vermilion in general becomes significantly worse due to the overwhelming amount of flat attack that Bennett offers. The large attack buff boosts the value of this set as well as Marais Chaussee further than before. It's so much that a damage percent goblet would be better for Xiao's overall damage than an attack percent one, though an attack percent one is still strong. This set is such a powerhouse for Xiao in this situation that if we neglected 1 stack of his new plunge attack set, his damage would be reduced by slightly more than 1% when used with an attack percent goblet at worst, where it would still increase his damage if used with an Animo damage goblet at best. While it might have some issues synergizing with him, this set is still incredibly powerful for Xiao to the point that it has the potential to be his new best artifact set in all circumstances. Not all plunge attack damage dealers are made equally though, as the debatably better one, Gaming, can struggle much more to use this set reliably. Gaming does not have the same damage percent issue that Xiao has, as he instead offers himself a pretty large variety of stats. Instead, damage percent ends up being one of the stats that Gaming wants the most due to the low amount of it he has in his base kit. This might make one think that this set would be perfect for him, but sadly that's not the case. This is because of 2 factors. Gaming's charge attacks take too long to deal damage, and more importantly, Gaming does not deal elemental skill damage. These 2 factors obliterate Gaming's ability to use this set, as he would struggle to consistently gain the stacks from dealing damage with his charge attack, and he would never be able to obtain the stacks from dealing damage with his elemental skill. In some cases, issues like this do not matter that much in the end, but unfortunately for Gaming, this impacts the usability of this artifact set on him immensely. In a vaporized team using Furina, Xiaonan, and Bennett to massively buff Gaming's damage output, this set falls behind the likes of Varesa Hunter pretty significantly. In these teams, Gaming can see between a 7 to 12% damage loss when swapping over from one of his best in slot sets, that of which being Varesa Hunter to this new plunge attack one. This is due to many reasons, as there's an overabundance of damage percent in these teams. Gaming cannot get the 100% damage bonus buff, and Gaming deals a decent amount of damage from other sources in his kit, not just plunge attack damage. All of these factors combine to reduce the potency of the set by a significant portion. However, the issue is even worse for melt teams, including Lolly, because Gaming can melt his charge attacks. This extra bit of pyro application would force Gaming to wait for Lolly to reapply cryo, which would take up a significant amount of time. This would reduce his damage so severely that you'd have to swap out Bennett or Xiaonan for Xianyun or Diona. Either situation is bad though, as the damage buffs they offer are not enough for this new artifact set to keep up with Varesa. It's so bad that Gaming can lose out on up to 15% of his total damage output. That's ridiculously huge and just goes to show how detrimental this artifact set can be for a character it wasn't meant for. This set is generally not that good and not worth farming for on most characters. It is only superior to sets like Varesa when this artifact's passive is completely maxed out. However, this is a detriment since most characters that would want to use this set for the plunging attack damage boost can only use it consistently when alongside Xianyun. But Xianyun would want to be alongside Furina, who enables the Varesa Hunter artifact set. So since most characters that would want this set cannot cap the buff, Varesa will 100% be the better artifact set to stick with, especially if that character is Gaming or Hu Tao, who cannot deal elemental skill damage. Claymore users like Diluc also suffer when using this set, since the charged attacks that this set requires in order to buff the user take too long to come out. But for those that can deal plunging attack, charged attack, and elemental skill damage consistently and frequently without drastically altering their rotations, this set will be their best in slot if a large majority of their damage comes from plunge attacks. This essentially leaves the set as only usable on the likes of Xiao and the new Varesa, I think that's how you pronounce it, who will also be a plunge attack DPS, but I'm going to keep most of the info on her for her own guide video later on. Now with plunge attacks over and done with, let's move on to the next artifact set, which is also rather interesting, though quite odd. This set offers a solid 15% cryo damage buff in the 2-piece. The 4-piece then offers a 60% normal attack bonus and a 60% elemental burst damage bonus, which is good, but it has some incredibly odd conditions. These buffs are only activated while the user has 0 elemental energy. Additionally, when the user deals normal attack damage or elemental burst damage, the buff not corresponding to that damage type will be removed for 6 seconds. This set is so oddly specific and niche that can be used effectively on 0 characters currently. This is due to the first condition of the 4-piece effect that requires a consistent 0 energy gathered for a character's elemental burst, else that character will lose out on the 60% damage bonus buffs. From what I can currently tell, though I will update it on the screen if it has changed, this passive constantly checks for that 0 energy. So the instant that any energy is gathered, whether it be from an enemy defeat, a Favonius weapon, or an elemental skill, this buff will be removed. So this new artifact set will most likely only be usable on 1 or 2 characters that have yet to be released. My bet's on Skirk and possibly Capitano if Hoyo decides to revive him, but until then, this set is essentially useless. Even if it was useful though, it is directly competing with the likes of Blizzard Strayer and Varesa, which both offer similar damage bonuses in the 2-piece, but significantly better 4-piece effects. So, well, this is getting into speculation territory, but in order to push them away from Varesa, whoever does end up using this set will need anti-synergy with Furina as an on-field character. They would need an intense amount of innate crit rate built into their kit, and or they will need their elemental burst damage to be off-field focused like this set suggests. In order to push them away from using Blizzard Strayer, this potential cryo character will likely find much more success or have a kit that forces the use of compositions other than freeze. However, since this gives cryo damage, it is unlikely that this character will be be physical. Instead, this character would probably be melt or monocryo focused to make use of that two-piece effect. They will also probably have a playstyle like Arlecchino and Raiden, where you'll use their setup ability first. For Raiden and Arlie, it's their elemental skill, but for this unit, it would probably be their elemental burst, and then swap into them to deal damage as an on-field unit. Either that, or there will be two characters in the future who each desire one of the two effects in the 4-piece. And finally, we have the signature catalyst for Varesa. This beast offers a large base attack and a low crit damage stat. The passive then boosts the attack percent of the user by an unconditional 28%. The passive also buffs the crit damage of plunge attacks by 40% for 15 seconds after using an elemental skill or elemental burst, and by 28% for 15 seconds after using a plunge attack. These crit damage plunge attack buffs will be removed after a plunge attack is triggered. While the large base attack, decent crit value, and attack percent passive sounds pretty good, the rest of the passive is as niche as it can get. The catalyst only buffs plunge attack damage, which is a niche damage type, and a large part of its buffs can only be obtained by repeated elemental skill and elemental bursts casts. This effectively makes the passive for this weapon useless on everyone other than Varesa, as almost every character would prefer the smorgasbord of stats that the Woodsith could provide. If you want to compare it to another 5-star weapon though, Cashflow Supervision offers the same base attack and crit value, but a slightly less attack percent buff. This would lead to a minor decrease in damage on most characters, but this catalyst also comes with significantly more versatile passive buffs in normal attack damage bonus, charged attack damage bonus, and attack speed, while also having a condition that can be triggered by Rift Hounds, Burning, Burgeon, Bountiful Cores, face tanking enemy damage, or Fiorina. This is just one of those niche weapons that will not see much use on any character other than the one it was made for, similar to Emily's, Walani's, and Chaska's signatures. However, there is one use for it that is actually pretty good, and that's when used with the C6 Xianyun as a DPS. I know that this isn't achievable by many, which just goes to show how niche this weapon really is, but hey, at least there is another use for it somewhere. Xianyun C6 allows her to act as a plunge attack DPS that spams her elemental skill in order to do said plunge attack damage. However, she needs enough energy recharge for her elemental burst in order to activate this main TS potential. If we consider that all of these requirements are fulfilled, then this catalyst would end up enabling her to deal about 5 to 7% more damage than the Crane's Echoing Call. This minor damage increase is mostly because of her signature's energy generation effect, which enables Xianyun to get her burst back without almost any extra bit of energy recharge. Varesa's signature has no energy generation effect, which means we have to put an energy recharge sans on Xianyun in order to use Varesa's signature catalyst. However, if we disregard that and assume she can get her elemental burst back up every single rotation, then this weapon would be about 20 to 23% better than her own signature. But again, this is a super wailed out Xianyun. There is realistically no other way to make use of this without Xianyun or Varesa herself, and even when Xianyun does support an ally, the catalyst ally would usually prefer to use the kit they were made to use, not their plunge attacks. Overall, Hoyo is not adding in too much to toy with, as most additions are setups for later or specifically made for the newest 5-star unit. This is pretty disappointing overall, but it's been a year of disappointment like this so far, so we might as well get used to it. But now I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think of the new artifact sets? Do you plan to use them on anyone? Any plans to make a funky plunge attack build on the support? Or maybe you're hyped for that new mystery cryo DPS? Tell me what you think down below. But with that, I will skedaddle. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye bye!